now starting another original tale from Korafika Tales, an exclusive work from our publishing house, narrated by Joanne. Enjoy the story. He saw her across the terminal, and his world stopped. 6 months. 6 months since he walked away. 6 months since he'd convinced himself he was free. But she was pregnant. He'd spent half a decade trying to give her a child. It never happened. Now, with his new fiancée on his arm, she was carrying someone's baby. Or was it his? One last night. One last mistake before the divorce papers dried. Now everything he'd built was about to crumble. Because if that child was his, he'd just made the worst decision of his life. And if it wasn't, he didn't know which truth would destroy him faster. The airport terminal smelled like expensive coffee and sterile air conditioning. Jin-Woo Kim walked through the private lounge like he owned it. Because in many ways, he did. At 32, he commanded an empire most people couldn't even name. The kind built in shadows. The kind that didn't forgive mistakes. His fiancée Hana walked beside him. 26. Beautiful, uncomplicated. Everything his ex-wife wasn't. "Jin, the car's waiting," Hana said, her voice soft, her hand light on his arm. He nodded, barely hearing her. His mind was already elsewhere, on the deal waiting in Seoul, on the shipment that needed his approval, on the territorial dispute brewing in the West Side. He didn't have time to think about the past. He'd made that decision 6 months ago, when he signed the papers and walked out of the brownstone they'd shared for 5 years. Divorce was supposed to be freedom. It was supposed to be the end. But then he saw her, across the terminal, standing near the boarding gate for international departures. A carry-on at her feet. Her hair pulled back the way she always wore it when she was stressed. Her posture just slightly too rigid, like she was holding herself together by sheer will. And her stomach, rounded, unmistakable, pregnant. Jin-Woo stopped walking. Hana noticed immediately. "Jin? What's wrong?" But he couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process the image in front of him. His ex-wife, Mireille, was pregnant. It wasn't possible. They'd tried for 5 years. Specialists. Treatments. Hope that turned into arguments that turned into silence. The one thing she'd wanted more than anything. And he couldn't give it to her. It had broken them. Or maybe they'd already been broken, and the absence of a child was just the final proof. Either way, they'd ended it. 6 months ago. And now she was pregnant. "Jin?" Hana's voice was sharper now, confused. He forced himself to move. One step, then another. His bodyguards flanked him, silent and efficient. But his focus had narrowed to a single point. Mireille hadn't seen him yet. She was looking down at her phone, one hand resting unconsciously on her belly. The gesture hit him like a bullet. He knew that hand. He knew every line of her body, every expression, every silence. For 5 years she'd been his, and for 6 months she'd been a ghost he refused to chase. But now, "Who is that?" Hana asked, following his gaze. Jin-Woo didn't answer. He was already walking toward Mireille. She looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment the entire airport disappeared. The noise, the people, the carefully constructed life he'd been building with someone else, it all fell away. There was only her. And the question neither of them had spoken yet. "Jin-Woo," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but he saw the flash of panic in her eyes. "Mireille." His name in her mouth felt like a knife. Hana appeared at his side, her confusion turning into something colder. "Do you two know each other?" Mireille's gaze flicked to Hana, to the diamond on her finger, to the way Jin-Woo's new fiancé stood just close enough to stake a claim. "We used to," Mireille said. "We were married," Jin-Woo corrected, his voice flat. Hana's breath caught. Mireille's jaw tightened, and for the first time in 6 months, Jin-Woo felt the full weight of what he'd walked away from. "You're pregnant," he said. It wasn't a question. Mireille's hand moved protectively to her belly. "Yes. How far along?" "That's none of your business. The hell it isn't." The air between them crackled. Hana took a step back, her eyes wide, her perfect composure fracturing. Jinwoo's mind was racing. 6 months since the divorce. But the last night before the papers were signed, they'd been drunk, angry, desperate. "One last time," she'd whispered. "One last time, and then we're done." He'd hated himself the next morning. Now he hated himself more. "Is it mine?" he asked, his voice low, dangerous. Mirai's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes went dark. "You walked away, Jinwoo. You don't get to ask me that. Answer the question." "Or what?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. "You'll do what, exactly? You have a fiancé. You have a new life. You made your choice." "Mirai, I'm boarding my flight. Like hell you are." She turned to walk away, but his hand shot out, catching her wrist. Not hard, never hard, but firm enough to stop her. "Let go," she said. "Not until you tell me the truth." Her eyes met his. And for one terrible, perfect moment, he saw everything she wasn't saying. The hurt, the anger, the possibility that the child she was carrying might be his. Or might not be. "I don't owe you anything," she said softly. Then she pulled her wrist free and walked toward her gate. Jinwoo stood there, frozen, as the only woman he'd ever loved disappeared into the crowd. Behind him, Hana's voice was ice. "Who was that?" But Jinwoo didn't answer, because for the first time in 6 months, he realized he'd made a mistake, and he didn't know if he could fix it. Jinwoo didn't board his flight. Hana did. Alone. Furious. Her last words still echoing in his ears. "If you go after her, we're done." He'd watched her walk away and felt nothing, because all he could see was Mirai, pregnant, alone, boarding a plane to God knew where. He made a call. "Tracker," he said into the phone. His head of security didn't ask questions. He never did. 30 minutes later, Jinwoo had an address, a small apartment in Brooklyn. Not the brownstone they'd shared in Manhattan, not the life they'd built together. She'd moved on, or tried to. He sat in the back of his car, staring at the building. It was nothing like the world he lived in. No doorman, no private entrance. Just a quiet street in a neighborhood where people minded their own business. She'd chosen this, away from him, away from everything. But if that child was his... He got out of the car. Mirai heard the knock at 11 p.m. and knew who it was before she even looked through the peephole. Of course he'd found her. Jinwoo Kim didn't accept no as an answer. It was one of the things she'd loved about him, and one of the reasons she'd had to leave. She opened the door. He stood there in his tailored suit, looking like he'd stepped out of another world. Which, in a way, he had. "You need to leave," she said. "Not until we talk. Here, we have nothing to talk about. You're carrying a child that might be mine." Her hand tightened on the doorframe. "Might be. You said it yourself. So tell me, is it?" She looked at him. Really looked at him. The sharp jawline. The cold eyes that only ever softened for her. The man who'd built an empire on fear but had held her like she was the only fragile thing in his world. God, she'd loved him. She still did. That was the problem. "I don't know," she said quietly. His entire body went still. "What?" "I don't know, Jinwoo. The timeline. It could be yours, or it could be someone else's." She saw the flash of pain in his eyes before he buried it. "Who?" "That's none of your business." "Like hell it isn't." "You left," she said, her voice breaking. "You chose someone else. You don't get to stand here and demand answers from me. I made a mistake." The words hung between them. Mirai laughed, bitter, broken. "A mistake? You proposed to someone else. You moved on. I thought you didn't want me anymore. I wanted a family." Her voice cracked. "I wanted a child. I wanted us. And you couldn't..." She stopped herself, closing her eyes. "It doesn't matter now." "It does." "No, Jinwoo, it doesn't. Because whether this child is yours or not, I'm keeping it. I'm raising it. Alone." "The hell you are. You don't get to decide that." He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the small doorway. If that child is mine, I'm not walking away. Not again. And if it's not? Silence. She saw the war in his eyes, the pride, the possessiveness, the love he'd never been able to fully give her. I need time, he said finally. For what? To figure this out. There's nothing to figure out. I'm not asking you for anything. I don't want your money. I don't want your protection. I just want... What? What do you want? You, she almost said. I want you. The way you used to be. Before the power consumed you. Before I became another thing you couldn't control. But she didn't say it. Because it wouldn't change anything. I want you to leave, she whispered. Jinwoo stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. My number, in case you change your mind. I won't. Keep it anyway. He turned to leave, then stopped. Mirai. What? If that child is mine, I'm not the same man I was 6 months ago. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But she'd heard those words before. Good night, Jinwoo. He left without another word. And Mirai closed the door, leaned against it, and finally let herself cry. Across town, in a penthouse that overlooked the city, Jinwoo stood at the window and made another call. I need a paternity test. Discreet. Fast. Done, his lawyer said. But she'll have to consent. She won't. Then we wait until the baby's born. Jinwoo's jaw clenched. That's 7 months. There's no other way. He hung up. 7 months. 7 months of not knowing, of watching her from a distance, of wondering if the child she carried was his, or proof that she'd moved on faster than he had. He poured himself a drink and stared out at the city he controlled. But for the first time in his life, Jinwoo Kim felt powerless. And he hated it. The next morning, Mirai woke to flowers outside her door. White roses. Her favorite. No card. But she knew. And despite everything, her heart broke a little more. Because he was trying. And she didn't know if that made it better or worse. The flowers kept coming. Every morning for 2 weeks. White roses, no card, no messages, just flowers. Mirai tried to ignore them. Tried to ignore the way her heart twisted every time she opened her door and saw them waiting. But it was impossible. Because she knew what they meant. I'm still here. I'm not giving up. She hated him for it. And she loved him for it. On the 15th day, there was a knock at her door. Not Jinwoo. A woman. Mid-40s. Elegant. Cold. Mirai Choi? The woman asked. Yes? My name is Yoona Kim. I'm Jinwoo's mother. Mirai's blood went cold. She'd met Yoona exactly 3 times during her marriage. Once at the wedding. Once at a family dinner that had ended in screaming. And once at the lawyer's office when the divorce papers were signed. Yoona Kim didn't do social calls. What do you want? Mirai asked. To make you an offer. I'm not interested. You haven't heard it yet. Mirai crossed her arms. I don't need to. Whatever you're about to say, the answer is no. Yoona smiled. Sharp. Dangerous. You're carrying a child that may or may not be my son's. I'm here to offer you a solution. A solution. A paternity test. Now, not after the birth. That's not possible. It is. Non-invasive prenatal paternity testing. A simple blood draw. Results in a week. Mirai's stomach turned. Why would I agree to that? Because you want to know the truth as much as we do. We? Jinwoo doesn't know I'm here. But I know my son. And I know he won't rest until he has answers. That's his problem. Yoona's expression hardened. If that child is a Kim, it belongs to our family. If it's not, you're free to disappear. I'll even help you. New city, new identity, enough money to start over. Mirai felt sick. You want to pay me to disappear? I want to protect my family. I'm not a threat. You're pregnant with a child of unknown paternity. That makes you a threat. Get out. Yoona didn't move. Think about it. 1 test, 1 answer, and this all ends. I said get out. Yoona placed a card on the table. The offer stands. When you're ready, Then she left. Mireille stared at the card for a long time. Then she called Jin-woo. He answered on the first ring. Mireille, your mother came to see me. Silence. Then, what did she say? She offered me money to take a paternity test and disappear. God damn it! She heard him moving, his voice tight with fury. I didn't send her. I swear. I know. Do you? Yes, because she did. Yoona Kim acted on her own. She always had. I'll handle her, Jin-woo said. Don't. She had no right. Jin-woo. Mireille closed her eyes. I'll take the test. Silence. What? I'll take the paternity test, but on my terms. Not hers, not yours, mine. Okay. His voice was careful. What are your terms? You don't get the results until after the baby's born. Mireille. That's the deal. I'll take the test now, but neither of us sees the results until the baby's here. Until I know I can protect them. Until I know you're not going to... To what?
You have 2 options. Keep watching short clips. Unlock the full story now. 14 full episodes. New content every week. Listen anytime, anywhere, no interruptions. Exclusive members-only area. Choose the story theme once a week. Scan the QR code now. Access is closing.
To take them from me, she thought. To pull them into your world. To make them a Kim before they even have a chance to be anything else. But she didn't say that. Until I know you're ready, she said instead. Jin-woo was quiet for a long time. Then, fine, we do it your way. Good. But Mireille? What? When those results come back, if that child is mine, I'm not walking away, not this time. She believed him. That was the terrifying part. I know, she whispered, and hung up. The test was done 3 days later. A quiet clinic, a single blood draw. The envelope sealed and handed to a lawyer who would hold it until Mireille gave permission. Jin-woo was there. He didn't say much, just stood in the corner, watching her like she might disappear if he looked away. When it was over, they stood outside the clinic in the cold afternoon light. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For letting me be here. Mireille looked at him, really looked at him. The exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. The way he'd aged in the 6 months since they'd signed the papers. Jin-woo, why did you propose to her? He flinched. Because I thought it would help me forget you. Did it? No. Her breath caught. I tried. He continued, his voice raw. I tried to move on, to build something new. But every time I looked at her, all I saw was, not you. That's not fair to her. I know. He stepped closer. I ended it. The engagement. It's over. Mireille's heart stopped. When? The day I saw you at the airport. Jin-woo. I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I needed you to know that whatever happens with this baby, I choose you. I've always chosen you. I was just too afraid to admit it. Tears burned her eyes. You hurt me. I know. You left. I know. And now you think you can just... No. He shook his head. I don't think anything. I'm just telling you the truth. For once. The truth. God, how she'd wanted the truth when they were still married. When the silence between them had grown so loud she couldn't breathe. When she'd begged him to talk to her, to tell her what he was feeling, and he'd shut her out. Now he was standing here, giving her everything she'd asked for. And it was too late. Wasn't it? I need to go, she said. Miri, I can't do this right now, Jin-woo. I can't. She walked away before he could stop her. But this time, she looked back. And he was still standing there, watching her go, like he'd done that night 6 months ago. Only now, his eyes held something different. Regret. The weeks that followed were strange. Mireille tried to rebuild her life piece by piece. She went to her doctor's appointments. She prepared the small nursery in her apartment. She researched baby names and read parenting books, and tried to convince herself that she could do this alone. But Jin-woo was everywhere. Not physically. He kept his distance like she'd asked. But his presence haunted her anyway. The flowers stopped, but other things appeared. A check in the mail. More money than she could spend in a year. She sent it back. A security detail that followed her from a distance. She called him and told him to call them off. He didn't. "I'm not taking chances with your safety," he'd said on the phone. "I don't need protection. You're carrying a child that might be mine. That makes you a target." A target for what? Silence. And then she'd understood. His world. The one she'd escaped. The one that didn't forgive weakness. That saw pregnancy as leverage. Family as collateral. She'd hung up without another word. But the security stayed. At 20 weeks, Mireille had her anatomy scan. The technician smiled and asked if she wanted to know the gender. "Yes," Mireille whispered. "It's a boy. A boy." She stared at the screen, watching the tiny heartbeat, the perfect fingers, the small face that would someday look like. Who? Jinwoo? Or the man she'd tried to move on with? Daniel. Kind. Safe. Everything Jinwoo wasn't. They dated for exactly 3 weeks after the divorce. 3 weeks of trying to feel something, anything, that wasn't grief. 3 weeks of gentle kisses and quiet dinners and conversations that never went deep enough to hurt. And then one night, she'd let him stay. Not because she loved him, but because she was lonely. And broken. And desperate to forget the man who'd shattered her. It had been a mistake. She'd known it the moment it was over. Had ended things the next day. Had spent the following weeks trying to bury the guilt. And then she'd missed her period. Now, staring at the ultrasound screen, she wondered if God was punishing her. If this child, this beautiful, innocent child, was the consequence of trying to erase Jinwoo from her heart. She left the clinic in a daze, and found Jinwoo waiting outside. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I wanted to make sure you were okay. How did you even know I had an appointment?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Of course he knew. He knew everything. "You can't keep doing this," she said, exhausted. "Doing what?" "Watching me, following me, inserting yourself into my life like you have the right. If that's my son, you don't know that. I know it's a possibility." She froze. "How did you—" "I have my ways." Of course he did. Mireille felt the tears coming and hated herself for it. "It's a boy," she whispered. Jinwoo's entire expression changed, softened, broke. "A son," he breathed. "Maybe, maybe not. We won't know until—" "I know. Jinwoo, I know he's mine, Mireille. I feel it." She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, that intuition didn't mean anything. That DNA was the only truth that mattered, but she couldn't. Because she felt it too. 2 weeks later, everything changed. Mireille was walking home from the grocery store when the black SUV pulled up beside her. She knew immediately something was wrong. The men who stepped out weren't Jinwoo's security. They were older, harder. Their eyes cold and calculating. "Mireille Choi?" one of them said. She took a step back. "Who are you?" "Friends of the family. We just want to talk." "I don't know you, but we know you." He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "We know you're carrying Jinwoo Kim's child, or at least that's what he thinks." Her blood went cold. "We also know," the man continued, stepping closer, "that Jinwoo has been distracted lately, making mistakes, losing focus, all because of you. I don't know what you're talking about. His enemies are watching, waiting, and a pregnant ex-wife? That's a weakness they can exploit. I'm not his wife anymore. Doesn't matter. You're still a liability." Another man appeared behind her. She was surrounded. "What do you want?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "For you to disappear. Take the money. Leave the city. Forget Jinwoo Kim ever existed. And if I don't?" The man's smile widened. "Then we can't guarantee your safety, or the baby's." Mireille's hand moved protectively to her belly. Before she could respond, gunshots shattered the air. Not close, but close enough. The men scattered. Tires squealed, and suddenly Jinwoo was there, his security surrounding her, his hands on her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Mirai, look at me. Are you hurt? No, she managed. Get her out of here, Jinwoo ordered. Now. She woke up in a penthouse she didn't recognize. Jinwoo was sitting beside the bed, his head in his hands. Where am I? She asked. He looked up. The relief in his eyes was overwhelming. Somewhere safe. What happened? Rivals. They were trying to intimidate you. To get to me. Who were they? It doesn't matter. They won't touch you again. Mirai sat up slowly, her head spinning. You can't promise that. I can, and I will. Jinwoo, this is exactly why I left. This world, your world, it's dangerous. And now you're dragging me back into it. I'm not dragging you anywhere. I'm protecting you. I don't want your protection. Her voice broke. I want my baby to be safe, and as long as I'm connected to you, he won't be. Jinwoo stood abruptly. You think I don't know that? You think I don't hate myself for putting you in danger? Then let me go. I can't. Why not? Because I love you. The words exploded out of him, raw, desperate. Because I've loved you since the day I met you. Because walking away from you was the worst mistake of my life. And I know I don't deserve you. I know I've hurt you. But I can't. I won't lose you again. Not to my enemies. Not to anyone. Mary stared at him, tears streaming down her face. You left me, she whispered. You chose your empire over me. I was wrong. You can't just say that and expect everything to be okay. I know. He knelt beside the bed, taking her hand. I know I broke us. I know I shattered everything we had. But Mirai, if you give me one more chance, just one, I swear to you I'll spend the rest of my life proving I've changed. How? She asked, her voice breaking. How do you change a world built on violence? How do you walk away from an empire? I don't know, he admitted. But I'll figure it out. For you, for our son. He might not be yours. He is. Jinwoo's grip tightened. In my heart, he already is. And even if the DNA says otherwise, I don't care. I love you. And I'll love any child you carry. Because he's part of you. The words shattered her. Because she'd waited 5 years to hear them. And now, when everything was broken beyond repair, he was finally saying them. I need time, she whispered. I'll give you all the time you need. And I need you to promise me something. Anything. If those test results come back and he's not yours, you walk away. You let us go. You let me raise him in peace. Jinwoo's jaw clenched, but he nodded. I promise. She didn't believe him, but God help her, she wanted to. That night, while Mirai slept in the guest room, Jinwoo made a call. Set up a meeting, he said, with everyone. All the families. Boss? His second-in-command asked, confused. I'm stepping back. What? Not completely, but I'm delegating, restructuring. I'm not putting her at risk anymore. You're doing this for a woman? I'm doing this for my family. Silence. Then, understood. Jinwoo hung up and stared out at the city. For 15 years, he'd built an empire. For 15 years, he'd been untouchable. But now, for the first time, he had something worth losing. And he'd burn it all down before he let anyone hurt her. The months passed in a strange, fragile peace. Mirai stayed in Jinwoo's penthouse. Not because she'd forgiven him, but because she couldn't deny the truth anymore. She was safer there than anywhere else. His security was everywhere, invisible, but constant. She hated it. But she also understood it, because twice more people had tried to reach her. Threats, warnings, messages left at her old apartment. Flowers with notes that made her skin crawl. Jinwoo never told her the details, but she saw the tension in his shoulders. The phone calls he took in the middle of the night. The meetings that lasted until dawn. He was at war, and she was the reason. At 30 weeks, her doctor flagged a complication. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to put her on bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy. Jinwoo hired a nurse, moved his office into the penthouse, canceled meetings, rearranged his entire life around her. "You don't have to do this," Mirai said one evening as he brought her dinner. "Yes, I do. Jinwoo, let me take care of you." His voice was soft, pleading. "It's the only thing I'm good at anymore." She wanted to argue, to push him away, to protect herself from falling for him again. But she was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of pretending she didn't still love him. Tired of holding on to anger that only hurt her. So she let him stay. And slowly, carefully, they began to rebuild. They didn't talk about the past. Not directly. But late at night when she couldn't sleep and he sat beside her reading contracts, they talked about everything else. "What do you want to name him?" Jinwoo asked one night. Mirai looked up from her book. "I don't know yet. Do you have a list?" "A few options." "Tell me." She hesitated. Then, "Minjun, it means clever and handsome." Jinwoo smiled. Actually smiled. "I like it." "Yeah?" "Yeah." He paused. "What about a middle name?" "I was thinking, something American, so he feels at home here." "Like what?" "James, or Alexander." "Minjun Alexander Kim." The name hung in the air between them. Kim, his last name. She hadn't agreed to that. Hadn't decided if this baby would carry Jinwoo's name or hers. But hearing it spoken aloud, it felt right. God help her, it felt right. "We don't know if he's yours yet," she said quietly. "I know." Jinwoo set down his papers. "But Mirai, whether the DNA says he's mine or not, I want to be his father, if you'll let me." Tears burned her eyes. "You can't just decide that." "Why not?" "Because it's not fair to him. To raise him thinking you're his father, and then one day he finds out. Finds out what? That I chose him anyway? That I loved him even when I didn't have to?" "Jinwoo, my father never chose me," he said, his voice rough. "I was his son by blood, by obligation, but he never chose me, never wanted me. And I spent my entire life trying to earn something I was never going to get." He looked at her, his eyes raw. "I don't want that for this boy. I want him to know, from day one, that he was wanted, chosen, loved, no matter what." Mirai's breath caught. Because she'd never heard Jinwoo talk about his father. Not once in 5 years of marriage. She'd known they were estranged. That Jinwoo had built his empire in defiance of the man who'd raised him. But she'd never known why. Now she did. "Your father sounds like a terrible man," she whispered. "He was." Jinwoo looked away. "And I spent years trying to prove I was better than him. Stronger. More powerful. I thought that's what mattered. Control. Dominance. Fear. And now? Now I know I was wrong." He turned back to her. "The strongest thing I've ever done wasn't taking over an empire. It was walking into that lawyer's office and admitting I needed help. It was standing outside your apartment and telling you the truth. It's sitting here, every night, waiting for you to forgive me. Jinwoo, I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I'm just asking you to let me try. To let me be the man you deserved the first time." Mirai reached out and took his hand. For the first time in months, she didn't pull away. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. Okay, you can try." The relief in his eyes nearly broke her. At 35 weeks, Mirai woke up to wetness between her legs. Her water had broken. "Jinwoo," she called, her voice tight with panic. He was at her side in seconds. "What's wrong?" I think it's time." His face went pale. Then, action. He called the doctor, grabbed the hospital bag, carried her to the car with a gentleness that made her want to cry. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Jinwoo held her hand the entire way, whispering reassurances she couldn't quite hear over the roaring in her ears. This was happening. She was about to have a baby, and she still didn't know who the father was. Labor was brutal. 22 hours of pain that rewrote her understanding of suffering. Jinwoo never left her side. He held her hand through every contraction, whispered encouragement when she screamed that she couldn't do it, wiped her forehead with a cool cloth when the exhaustion nearly dragged her under. "You're doing so good," he murmured, So good, Mirai. He's almost here. I can't. You can. You're the strongest person I know. Jinwoo, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And he wasn't. Even when the nurses tried to make him leave during shift change. Even when the doctor suggested he take a break. Even when Mirai screamed at him that this was all his fault. He stayed. At 3:47 a.m., Minjun Alexander was born. 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect lungs, perfect fingers, perfect everything. The nurse placed him on Mirai's chest and the world stopped. He was beautiful, dark hair, tiny fists. A small scrunched face that looked simultaneously ancient and brand new. Hi, baby, Mirai whispered, tears streaming down her face. Hi, I'm your mama. Beside her, Jinwoo stood frozen. She looked up at him, saw the tears on his face, the absolute awe in his expression. Do you want to hold him? She asked softly. Jinwoo nodded, unable to speak. The nurse helped transfer Minjun into his arms, and Mirai watched as Jinwoo Kim, the man who commanded an empire, who inspired fear in grown men, who'd built a life on violence and control, completely fell apart holding a 6-pound baby. He's perfect, Jinwoo breathed. God, Mirai, he's perfect. Yeah, she whispered. He is. For a moment, it didn't matter whose DNA was coded in Minjun's cells. It didn't matter what the sealed envelope in the lawyer's office said. This was their son, and nothing would ever change that. 3 days later, they sat in the hospital room, Minjun sleeping peacefully in Mirai's arms. The lawyer had called. The paternity results were ready. Do you want to know? Mirai asked quietly. Jinwoo looked at her, then at the baby. No, he said. No. I don't care what it says. He's mine. He's ours. That's all that matters. Jinwoo, I mean it. He took her hand. I don't need a piece of paper to tell me I'm his father. I decided that the day you told me you were pregnant. And nothing will change my mind. Mirai's throat tightened. But what if... There's no what if. I love you. I love him. That's the only truth I need. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the sleeping baby in her arms and made a decision. Open it, she said. Mirai, open it. I need to know. We both do. Jinwoo hesitated. Then he called the lawyer. 10 minutes later, the envelope arrived. He held it in his hands, staring at it like it might explode. Together, Mirai said. He nodded. They opened it together. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Jinwoo read it first. His entire body went still. Then he looked at her, tears streaming down his face. He's mine, he whispered. Mirai, he's mine. Relief crashed through her so violently she couldn't breathe. You're sure? 99, 9% match. He's mine. Our son. He's... Jinwoo's voice broke completely. Mirai started crying too. Great, heaving sobs of relief and joy and exhaustion. Because it was over. The uncertainty, the fear, the doubt. Minjun was Jinwoo's son. They were a family. That night, Jinwoo held Minjun while Mirai slept, and he made a promise. I don't know how to be a good father, he whispered to the sleeping baby. But I'm going to try. Every single day I'm going to try. I'm going to protect you, keep you safe, love you the way my father never loved me. He kissed Minjun's forehead. And I'm going to love your mother, the way I should have from the beginning. Minjun stirred slightly, his tiny hand wrapping around Jinwoo's finger. And Jinwoo Kim, the most powerful man in the city, finally understood what real strength was. It wasn't control, it wasn't fear, it was this, holding his son, choosing love, and never, ever letting go. 6 months later, the penthouse had transformed. What had once been cold, minimalist luxury was now chaos. The beautiful chaos of a baby learning to sit up, toys scattered across expensive rugs, bottles drying by the sink, and a mobile playing soft music in the nursery. Mirai sat on the floor, watching Minjun grab at a plush elephant, his laugh pure and unfiltered joy. She'd never been happier. It terrified her sometimes, this happiness. like it was too fragile to last. Like any moment, something would shatter it. But Jinwoo had kept every promise. He'd stepped back from the most dangerous parts of his business. Delegated. Built structures that didn't require his constant presence. He still worked, still commanded respect, still held power, but differently. Smarter. Safer. "What are you thinking about?" Jinwoo asked, sitting down beside her. "How different everything is." "Good different?" "Yeah," she smiled. "Good different." Minjun chose that moment to topple over, his face scrunching up in pre-cry preparation. Jinwoo scooped him up before the first tear fell, making exaggerated faces that had the baby giggling instead. "You're getting too good at that," Mireille observed. "I've had a good teacher." He glanced at her. "You." Something warm bloomed in her chest. They still hadn't talked about what they were. Hadn't defined their relationship beyond co-parenting. She lived in the penthouse but slept in the guest room. They had dinner together every night but kept a careful distance. It was safe. And safe was good. Except she was tired of safe. That evening, after Minjun was asleep, Mireille found Jinwoo on the balcony. The city stretched out below them, a million lights in the darkness. "Can we talk?" she asked. He turned, concern flickering across his face. "Of course. Is everything okay?" "Yeah. I've been thinking. About us." Jinwoo went very still. "Okay." Mireille took a breath. "You've kept every promise you made. You've been an incredible father. You've changed your entire life to make this work. And Her voice caught. "I don't know how to keep pretending I don't still love you." Jinwoo's eyes widened. "Mireille, I'm scared," she continued. "I'm so scared of getting hurt again, of letting you in and having you leave. But I'm also tired of living like we're strangers, like we didn't spend 5 years building a life together, like we're not building one now." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, I want to try, really try. Not just for Minjun, but for us." Jinwoo crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you," he said fiercely. "I have never stopped loving you, not for a single second. I know, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that I've changed, that I'm the man you deserve. You already are." "Mireille, you are," she insisted. "You're not perfect. Neither am I. But you're here. You're trying. And that's all I need." Jinwoo kissed her then. Soft. Desperate. Full of every word they hadn't said, every moment they'd lost, every tomorrow they were choosing to build together. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Jinwoo rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he whispered. Mireille laughed, surprised, overwhelmed. "We're already married." "We were married. Past tense. I want to do it again. The right way this time. Jinwoo. I want to stand in front of everyone we know and promise you forever. I want to put a ring on your finger that means something different than the first one. I want..." His voice broke. "I want you to be my wife. Again. Always." Tears streamed down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes? Yes. I'll marry you." Jinwoo kissed her again, deeper this time, pulling her close like he'd never let go. And from the nursery, Minjun started crying. They broke apart laughing. "I'll get him," Jinwoo said. "We'll both go." Hand in hand, they walked back inside, back to their son, back to their life, back to the family they'd built from the ashes of everything they'd lost. The wedding was small, just close family, a few trusted friends, and Minjun, 9 months old, sitting in his grandmother's lap, wearing a tiny suit that made Mireille cry. They'd chosen a garden venue. Simple. Beautiful. Nothing like the extravagant affair their first wedding had been. This time it was about them. About the promises they were making with full hearts and clear eyes. About choosing each other, every single day, for the rest of their lives. When Jinwoo saw Mireille walking down the aisle, he started crying. She was beautiful. Always had been. But today, she was radiant. "Hi," she whispered when she reached him. "Hi." He took her hands. You're stunning. So are you. The officiant smiled. Shall we begin? They'd written their own vows. Jinwoo went first. Mirai, he started, his voice shaking. The first time I married you, I thought I knew what love was. I thought it was possession, control, keeping you close and never letting go. I was wrong. He took a breath. Love isn't holding on so tight you suffocate each other. It's knowing when to step back, when to change, when to fight for the person you love by becoming someone worthy of them. Tears slipped down Mirai's cheeks. You broke me open, Jinwoo continued. You showed me what real strength looks like, what sacrifice means, what it costs to choose love over power, family over empire. He squeezed her hands. I promise to choose you, every day, in every way. I promise to be the father our son deserves, the husband you deserve, the man I've spent my whole life trying to become. He paused. And I promise, if I ever forget, if I ever slip back into old patterns, I'll listen when you remind me. I'll change. Again and again. As many times as it takes. Because you're worth it. You've always been worth it. Mirai was fully crying now. The officiant turned to her. Mirai? She took a shaky breath. Jinwoo, when we got divorced, I thought I'd lost everything. My marriage, my dreams, my future. I thought I'd never be whole again. She smiled through her tears. But I was wrong. Because losing you taught me something I'd forgotten. I don't need someone else to complete me. I'm already whole, already enough. All on my own. Jinwoo's eyes glistened. And that's why I can stand here today and marry you again. Not because I need you, but because I choose you. Because I want to build a life with you. Not as two halves trying to become one, but as two whole people choosing to walk the same path. She wiped her eyes. I promise to forgive you when you mess up, to call you out when you're wrong, to support you when you're right, to be your partner, your equal, your best friend. And I promise to love you, not the perfect version of you, not the man you think you should be, but the real you, flaws and all. Because that's the man I fell in love with. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. The officiant cleared his throat. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Again, everyone laughed. You may kiss. Jinwoo didn't wait. He pulled Mirai into his arms and kissed her like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between. Their guests erupted in applause. Minjun started clapping too, even though he had no idea what was happening. And Mirai knew, in that perfect moment, that everything they'd survived, every fight, every tear, every moment of doubt, had been worth it. Because this was real. This was forever. This was home. 2 years later, Minjun ran through the penthouse, his laughter echoing off the walls. Appa! Appa! Watch me! Jinwoo looked up from his laptop just in time to see his son execute a perfect somersault and land flat on his face. Minjun! But the toddler was already up, giggling. I okay? Jinwoo shook his head, smiling. You're going to give me a heart attack. That's what kids do, Mirai said, walking in with her hands on her very pregnant belly. Jinwoo stood immediately. Should you be walking around? I'm pregnant, not broken. You're 8 months pregnant. Exactly. 8 months, not 9. I can still walk. Minjun ran over and pressed his ear to Mirai's belly. Hi, baby sister. What do you hear? Mirai asked, running her fingers through his hair. Nothing. She's sleeping. Jinwoo crouched down beside him. You excited to be a big brother? Minjun nodded enthusiastically. I protect her, like Appa protects Iyama. Jinwoo's chest tightened. Mirai caught his eye and smiled. Their daughter, they'd found out 3 months ago, was due in exactly 4 weeks. Minseo, beautiful and precious. A sister for Minjun. A daughter for them. Another piece of their impossible, beautiful life. That night, after Minjun was asleep, Jinwoo and Mirai sat on the balcony. He had his hand on her belly, feeling their daughter kick. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? Mirai asked quietly. All the time. If you hadn't come to the airport that day, I would have found you eventually. You sound very sure. I am. He looked at her. You're my gravity, Mirai. I tried to escape you. Tried to build a life without you. But I was just floating. Lost. You pulled me back. That's very poetic for a crime lord. He laughed. Former crime lord. You're still involved. Barely, and only the legitimate parts. It was true. Over the past 2 years, Jinwoo had systematically dismantled the dangerous elements of his empire. Sold off territories, restructured operations, built something legal, something his children could inherit without shame. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. I'm proud of you, Mirai said softly. For what? For choosing us, every single day. Jinwoo kissed her forehead. Easiest choice I've ever made. Mincio kicked hard, as if agreeing. They both laughed, and sat there, under the stars, building their future one quiet moment at a time. 4 weeks later, Mincio arrived. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, perfect lungs, perfect everything. And when they brought her home, Minjun insisted on holding her immediately. Careful, Jinwoo cautioned, helping position the baby in his son's arms. Minjun stared at his sister with absolute wonder. She's so small. You were that small once? Mirai said. Really? Really. Minjun carefully touched Mincio's tiny hand. She wrapped her fingers around his. She likes me, he breathed. Of course she does, Jinwoo said. You're her big brother. Minjun looked up at him with serious eyes. I'll protect her. Always. Jinwoo's throat tightened. I know you will. And he meant it. Because that's what family did. They protected each other, chose each other, loved each other, no matter what. That night, after both children were asleep, Mirai found Jinwoo standing in the nursery. He was watching Mincio sleep, the same expression of awe on his face that he'd had the day Minjun was born. You okay? Mirai asked softly. He turned to her, tears in his eyes. I used to think power was everything. That respect and fear and control were what made a man strong. And now I know the truth. He gestured to the sleeping baby. This is power. This is strength. Being trusted with something this precious, this fragile, this perfect. He walked over and pulled Mirai into his arms. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For giving me this. For giving me a second chance. For choosing me even when I didn't deserve it. Mirai held him tight. You gave me the same thing. A second chance? A family, a real one. The kind I always dreamed of. They stood there, wrapped in each other, their children sleeping peacefully nearby. And Jinwoo realized something profound. He'd spent 15 years building an empire. But this small family in a too-big penthouse filled with toys and laughter and love, this was his greatest achievement. Not the money. Not the power, not the fear he'd commanded. This love, this life, this forever. Epilogue 5 years later. Minjun was 7, Mincio was 5, and their baby brother Minho was 2.5. The penthouse had long since been abandoned for a house in the suburbs, one with a yard, a swing set, a treehouse Jinwoo had built himself, with minimal help from professionals. Jinwoo's empire still existed, but it was clean, legal, something he wasn't ashamed of. And every night, he came home. Not to power, not to fear, but to chaos. Beautiful, perfect chaos. Appa! Mincio ran to him the moment he walked in the door. Look what I drew. She shoved a crayon masterpiece in his face. That's beautiful, princess. Is that our family? Yes, that's you. That's Yama. That's Minjun, me, and Minho. Jinwoo crouched down. Why am I purple? Because purple is strong. He laughed and scooped her up. You're absolutely right. Minjun appeared, holding Minho's hand. Appa, can we build the rocket tonight? The Lego one? Yeah. After dinner. Yes. Mireille emerged from the kitchen, flour on her cheek, a smile on her face. You're home. I'm home. He kissed her. The kids made gagging noises. Everyone laughed. And as Jinwoo looked around at his messy, loud, imperfect family, he knew one thing for certain. He'd finally built an empire worth keeping. Not one of fear, but one of love. And that empire, this family, would last forever. The end.
You have 2 options. Keep watching short clips. Unlock the full story now. 14 full episodes. New content every week. Listen anytime, anywhere, no interruptions. Exclusive members-only area. Choose the story theme once a week. Scan the QR code now. Access is closing.